guys, what's going on? This is Mike's Garage, and today I just wanted to do a little overview of the MR2 Turbo E153 transmission. Okay, these transmissions came in the 91 through 95 MR2s, and if you're from Europe, they even went to 99. But from 91 to 95, they're all pretty similar, whether you have limited slip or not. That's an option. But let's do a little walk around. Start here at the throwout bearing. Okay guys, if the camera can pick this up, here you have your throwout bearing. You have your retainer clip right there that wraps around the throwout bearing and hooks onto the clutch fork. And this is your clutch fork right here. There's a ball type brace in here that this clutch fork just snaps into. I like to put a little grease or anti-seize on that so it doesn't squeak. And I like to put a little anti-seize or grease on this shaft right here. Just don't put too much. You don't want it slinging onto the clutch and having your clutch slip. But let's move on to the back of the transmission. Here we have your rear transmission mount. And here's where your axle would go in. Here's your axle seal. Guys, some guys can put these in cockeyed and they will leak if you don't get them in there flat and straight, just so you know. Okay, let's walk around to the front of the transmission. I call this the front of the transmission because if you're sitting in the driver's seat, this is directly behind you. Okay, in blue, that is your slave cylinder right here. This is just a heat shield that protects it, protects these lines also. Right here, that is your slave cylinder pin or rod, whatever you want to call it. That goes right into the clutch fork. I also like to put anti-seize or grease on that just a little bit so it doesn't squeak. Okay, moving down, you have your bleeder screw for your slave cylinder, which is a 10mm. Move down a little farther, you have your clutch soft line, which connects into your clutch hard line on the bottom of the car. Okay, and here, these two brackets are where your shifter cables would go. They just slide in here. There's a little clip that slides onto the back, pretty simple. And your shifter cables hook onto your shifter forks here. And you would have bushings on your shifter cables, which are most likely rubber if you haven't swapped them out yet. I have mine set up for ball bearing type bushings, which is a real upgrade. You can use brass or ball bearing, but I think anything's better than the rubber ones. Okay, one more bushing that wears. If you can see it, this square bushing right here, that needs to fit in there tight, and I like to put a little grease on the shaft right there that it slides on. Sometimes you can turn it, that square bushing, because it only wears on two sides, but just make sure that's tight, and if it's not, replace it. Okay, that's about it for this side of the transmission, other than your mount right here. Let's move up to the top. Okay, looking down the top of the transmission, here you have your starter, and here's your connector for your battery cable, along with the plug on the side of the starter here. And guys, if you have your transmission painted like I do, you're really going to want to sand inside the starter here and on the casing itself so you get a good metal to metal contact between the starter and the case. Grounding is so important on these cars. You will start a fire real quick if it's not grounded properly. Okay. On the top of the transmission, you have your transmission fluid plug. That's where you would add transmission fluid. Right next to it is just a breather. This thing's supposed to be loose. It's just a breather. And this plug right here is for your reverse lights. And every time I reinstall an engine, I always forget to plug that damn thing in. Okay, now here is your main ground. Okay guys, this is very important. If you do not have this on your transmission, go get it, because you will start a fire without that one. Okay, here we have the speed sensor. Now, like I said, this is a 93 transmission. It has electronic plug right there, electronic speedo on this one. But if you have an earlier transmission, like a 91, 92, it would look the same. The only thing, you would have a speedo cable input right there. So let's move down. Here we have the rain shield, rain cover, and that's where your other axle would go in on the other side, if you can see that. And right down here, that's your transmission drain plug. Okay, so what you would do, you would drain your transmission from this plug here, plug it back in, walk over to the front of the transmission, as I called it. This is your transmission fluid level plug. You would pull that out. So you would drain your transmission fluid from the bottom plug, put the bottom plug back in, take this plug completely out, go up top here, use a funnel, put transmission fluid in right here until it starts pouring out of the hole here. Make sure your car is on a level surface. As soon as it starts pouring out, you're good to go. Plug everything back up and you're all set. Should take just under 4 quarts. And that is pretty much a wrap for the overview of the E153 MR2 turbo transmission. If I left anything out, guys, let me know. Other than that, take it easy.